But anyway, hi, thanks for being here. I'm Laurel Stark, and this is David Jackson from the One Club. And I don't know how much you guys know about Next Creative Leaders, but I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. You can kind of understand where we were and how we came to today. David and I actually worked together to co-found this initiative back in 2015. So this is the 4th year that we've awarded women this honor. And we're now at 40 Next Creative Leaders total. And that's pretty exciting. It's exciting that we're going to be year 5. The work is always really outstanding. This year we have an exceptional group, very global. And it's always really interesting for us to see, you know, what rises to the top when women get to put themselves forward, when women decide what leadership looks like. And what we found is that there's always, with this group, a much higher representation of people, of women of color, LGBTQ, that show up as leaders and just rise to the top. And the work is outstanding. The work is not just good, but it's work that's actually challenging the status quo and changing the world. And today we have 4 of the winners here to speak with you guys. So we have Nedal Ahmed. She's a copywriter at Droga 5, New York. We have Maddy Kramer. She's an art director at Saatchi and Saatchi, New York. We have Krystle Mullin. She's an ACD from RPA in Santa Monica. And we have Gayatri Sriram. She's digital creative head from FCBUlka in New Delhi. And she came all the way here to speak with you guys, so awesome. She wins the award for longest flight. So hi, thank you guys for being here. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna actually show you guys some of their award-winning work and talk about that work a little bit so that you can get a little bit of an understanding of what these women brought to the table and how they shaped this creative. And hopefully you'll get a lot of insights and tidbits that you can take back with you and help you work on creative that's equally as outstanding. So can we play the first video, please? This is Nedal's work.
Who said that?
The lady at the store.
That is not a compliment.
Listen, it's an ugly, nasty word, and you are going to hear it. Nothing I can do about that. But you are not going to let that word hurt you. You hear me?
There are some people who think you don't deserve the same privileges just because of what you look like. It's not fair. It's not.
Remember, you can do anything they can. Difference is you gotta work twice as hard and be twice as smart.
Come straight home after practice. You got your ID? Yeah. Guess I stopped it. How's your review?
We're good.
You good?
Yeah,
You see?
we're good.
Okay. Good. Now, when you get pulled over,
I'm a good driver. Okay?
baby,
Don't worry.
this is not about you getting a ticket. This is about you not coming home.
I'm gonna be okay. Right? Okay.
Baby.
It's not fair. But you keep showing up.
You are not pretty for a black girl. You are beautiful, period. Okay? Don't ever forget that.
Congratulations, that's really, really beautiful work, and every time I see it, it makes me choke up. I'm feeling all the feels. So I'd love to talk to you a little bit about that work, and clearly you have a very brave client. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the backstory of how this kind of brief came to be and what the ask was.
Yeah, so can you guys hear me okay? Awesome. This brief came actually in December 2016, and so it was a really important time. It was right after the election. I think a lot of us, especially me in advertising, felt kind of powerless, being so far removed, like what can we do? And I think what happened was P&G, a lot of brands felt at that time that they needed to take a stand about what kind of company they are and who they are. And so the brief came, My Black is Beautiful is a platform that P&G has had for about 10 years, and it was always focused on beauty products, hair care, skincare that were made for Black women. And that's what the marketing was typically about. And so they wanted to evolve it a little bit to talk about larger, broader issues that face Black women. So that's kind of the genesis of the work, and we showed them a few different concepts. One was based about like bias in beauty standards, and the talk was one of them. But I think when we presented the work, even just a reaction to the script, it was clear that this was the one that we wanted to go with. But for me personally, it was very gratifying at that time to kind of have something that I could throw myself into and feel like maybe it could make a difference or just at least start a dialogue.
I think you absolutely accomplished that, absolutely. So obviously, race is a touchy subject, and it's something that's become even more heated in the current political climate. So I'd love to kind of hear a little bit more about what it was like to work on creative that was kind of trying to broach that subject.
Yeah, I think, a very valid question is what right does a brand have to talk about race? And I think even looking at the final work, I still think it's a valid question. I think one of the really cool things about what we get to do as creatives and just people in advertising in general is that we do have the power to direct millions of dollars of media and marketing money and messages that people can see. So even though that it might be coming from a brand, there is a greater good that can be accomplished. That being said, I think we have to be so sensitive, because if it goes wrong, it goes really, really wrong. And no offense to anybody who worked on this, but I did not want to make the next Pepsi. And so I was terrified, to be honest with you, working on this project. But I think it taught me to be paranoid. And a lot of times you do want to say it's going to be okay, it's going to be fine, no one's going to notice that. But sometimes it does pay to be paranoid and to ask yourself, will somebody notice that? There's still things I would want to fix about this. One of the things was that I would want to fix about it, and it's a battle that we fought, but we didn't win, was having the fathers in speaking roles. That was just a battle that we did not win, because P&G had, their history was mothers, proud sponsor of mothers, all that stuff. But there's so many things that I would want to change about this and make it better. But I think being critical, especially very self-critical in these kind of instances, is important.
I think there's that balance of being brave enough and having to put something out there, and also having the internal dialogue about what you're doing and making sure that you're keeping yourself honest and your team honest and you're asking the right questions. I feel like you did a really nice job balancing that here. So obviously, I think this paid off. I'd love to hear a little bit about the reaction that you guys have gotten from this ad and how that feels to you.
Definitely a mixed reaction, but in a good way. On the positive side, I think it's done really great within the industry. Even more importantly, I think it's always really great to get industry recognition, press, all that stuff. It's really great, but at the same time, I think when you start seeing your work being in media like the evening news or in the Washington Post and things like that, to me, that's a measure of success that really speaks to me, because it means you're going beyond just the marketing, stratosphere. The negative reaction was really big, and P&G actually had to stand behind this. There was people putting petitions on change.org to boycott P&G, and so many people who I already knew, like when I was talking earlier about think about how it's going to go and like who could say what about it. There's just people who think inherently talking about race is racist, and they just don't want to hear it. And we're not going to change those people's minds overnight. I think if we expose them to more and more of these conversations, hopefully they'll change. But I always knew that it was going to be a 50-50. The all lives matter people just did not want to see something like this, and that's okay with me, honestly.
And maybe they're not the target, There's that too. So I'd like to talk a little bit more, I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, but kind of the opportunity that's out there right now for brave brands to join or to start an important cultural conversation. I feel like one of the things that we have that's a privilege in working in this industry is that our work can start and change culture, and we can impact culture. And so I think especially now, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on what those opportunities are for brands to be brave and kind of put themselves out there to stand behind work like this that can really start an important conversation.
Yeah, I think work that raises awareness is really important. I think it's kind of part of this, it was part of this like, big wave of work that was, brands putting a stake in the ground on who they are, and it was really great to be part of that. I think the next thing, and this is something that happens sometimes if you're a brand and you put something like this, then the attention turns to you as a company. It's like, do you, walk the walk? So I think it's great to say important things about our culture, but I think we need to start looking at how, the brands actually operate. What are they doing? Who are they hiring? Are their products, supporting the message that they're trying to put out? So I think the next thing is doing, I would say. And I think as creatives, it's not just about coming up with a great script. It's also we have ideas that I think we could bring to companies proactively that could just be part of how they conduct their business.
And asking those important questions too, I think, challenging that and asking like, what can you do to back this up? Mm-hmm. Like if you're brave enough to take this stand, like what do your internal numbers look like? Is this authentic to your brand?
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. If we could play the second video, please.
Yeah, just your typical Super Bowl car ad. Right?
Or a hilarious beer ad.
Or whatever ad this is.
Whatever.
But it's a Tide ad.
What? It's a Tide ad.
What makes it a Tide ad?
There are no stains. Look at those clean clothes. What else would this be an ad for?
Diamonds?
A gift that lasts for
No, Tide.
Cold, refreshing.
Tide ad.
Fall into the sleep of you.
No. Tide. No. Tide ad.
extreme.
No. Tide.
Tide!
Meet the all-new.
No, it's a Tide ad. Tide.
So, does this make every Super Bowl ad a Tide ad?
I think it does. Watch and see.
Hello, guys. Is your man the kind of man who would climb the height? I'm in a Tide ad.
Nice pants.
Get off my horse.
Tide ad.
Beautiful. Like a Tide ad.
Sarah? Sarah?
It's a Tide ad. Sometimes the signs are hard to ignore. But whenever you see clothes this clean, that's a Tide ad.
Clean clothes may be an indication of a Tide ad. Tide users experience 10 times more cleaning power. Tide is America's #1 detergent in America.
Great work, Maddy. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me? Does it work?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I work at the One Club for Creativity, and we bring you the One Show and the Art Directors Club show every year, the ADC Annual Awards. So we've talked a lot about this commercial. It's really great stuff. I'm sure there's a good story about how it came about.
Yeah, well, I'm not obviously the only creative in it. We're a big team. It was a long, I think it took a long time to got to that idea. It was, we got briefed around like August of 2017, and the brief was literally like make something better than last year. And the year before they won like 14 million of the idea that was really good. They had a stain and they solved it. We're like, this is impossible. We're never gonna make something better than that. And we focused for like months on stains. We're like, how can we beat the next stain? How we make them? And we never we had good ideas, but nothing felt like authentic. And obviously a Saturday afternoon, all in a room, dark room, November, we were like all sitting, and one of the guys was like, well, I was thinking, what if we do something with like clean clothes? And we're like, yeah, kind of like Tide, it's like the #1 detergent. That means like everything is clean by Tide. that means every commercial is a tie ad, right? So that's kind of like the idea came to life, or a couple of creatives in a room, and it became so big that we needed a huge team of people. I think this got sold before Thanksgiving, and we were shooting in January, and it was out on February. So it was like a lot of hands-on writing scripts. There was like no structure of the team per se. It was like creatives bringing an idea to life. There was like no art directors, copywriters, everybody's in the room, like a writer's room, writing ideas. There's, I think, hundreds of scripts dead, obviously, in a Google Doc somewhere. And it was really cool. I think that the idea was so simple. It was next to us, and we couldn't see it for a lot of months. And when someone said it in the room, I was like, yes, that's like, this is so obvious. How come this is not the idea? And obviously, the execution made it perfectly, and the casting also brings it to life really nice. But it was a really nice process, and big team. I think we were like 10 or 11 creatives overall. And we were a super diverse team. 2 Argentinians, 2 Brazilians, 1 Italian, 1 Australian, and a couple Americans. So, no, Peruvian. So, like, you were like from all over the place, and I think that diversity also make what it is the spot. You know, like everybody got a little bit of each piece of what they know.
Speaking of diversity, a lot of women get put on these so-called women accounts, you know, like cleaning products and tampons.
Yeah.
But this ad gave you the opportunity to work on something from Old Spice to beer to insurance, like the men's accounts.
Yeah.
What was that like, and what's it like to work on the dude accounts?
Well, funny enough, I was actually working in an LA brief a couple months before that. So I think it was the same thing with people. I think it's nice to have that challenge, right? And we were actually 2 girls at the team. We were really lucky. One of like our CCO it's really open of like every creative idea comes from anywhere. So he felt that the need of like having a diverse team will bring something different to the table, and he definitely had it right. I think I'm lucky enough I didn't have too much of those accounts in my life. I actually been working in a lot of P&G, like Tide and Crest and all of those brands over the years of my career. But I did love working in LA. I think it's just finding the right balance and knowing that you can bring. I didn't know anything about football, to be honest. Like I kind of grew up here, but didn't really into it. So at the beginning, we're like, oh, what is this about? You know, like let's learn a little bit more. But then you realize that you just need a great idea besides knowing football, you know, to bring it to life.
Yeah. You know, you're not just changing the look of Super Bowl ads, you're changing the face of advertising with something called Invisible Creatives. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Woo! Yeah, so frustrated creative inside an agency. Me and I have a partner, she works at 72 and Sunny in Amsterdam. Laura and I felt like there was a need to help like the lower level in the creative industry to rise female creatives because we felt like sometimes like the ECDs that make it and everything, like there's not so much space, so like they always rotate. So we felt like the juniors and seniors and CDs and ACDs don't have as much help to be exposed, you know, and we believe that there's so much talent there, and like the whole question of like every festival and every like when you're looking for a new creative, there's not enough women. That's the excuse, right? We're like, okay, we're gonna make you think there's no excuse anymore. They're all here, and it's all about the talent, you know. And like we didn't have pictures of the people on the website. We felt like creativity is the key, and we're a creative industry, and we have to put the best creative work there. We don't select the work that goes on the website. We feel like it's so subjective as well that people have whatever. It's not a job hunting website. It's a talent website. It's a place where if you're an agency or even a festival, if you're looking for an next person to be speaking in your event, you can find it there. And we felt there was a need to make a change, you know, and expose every single creative worldwide to have a place where they felt their work can be exposed, and they can have the next opportunity for anything that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And how can people get involved in that again?
If you go to invisiblecreative.org, there's a join the team, and you can send your portfolio there, and I make sure you make it to the website. I'm the one that uploads every one of them. And yeah, please join us. And if you're an agency or a festival, you can pledge to help us bring it a little bit more to life and get into the next steps of how we bring in the company to life, kind of. We launched 3 months ago and we have already 600 books, so please help us grow it more.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maddy.
Can we play the third video, please?
These are nobody's memories. They aren't found in photo albums or at the bottom of anyone's heart. These are nobody's memories. There is nothing borrowed or blue. No one walked down the aisle. Nobody recalls if there was a chance of rain on the day. No witnesses were needed. No one said, I do.
Also another one of those that gives me all the feels.
Dropping all of the things.
Oh, shit. You good? You still mic'd?
I'm good. Okay, hi. Sorry.
Hi. Well, that was beautiful work. I've watched that a bunch, and I notice like beautiful things about it every time I watch it. I'd love to hear a little bit about the backstory of that and how who the client was and how they came to you guys and asked you and what the original ask was there.
Yeah, so Pflag Canada is an organization. There's actually Pflags all across North America, but Pflag Canada is in and of itself a nonprofit organization, and it stands for Parents and Friends of Lesbian and Gays. And actually, really recently, that acronym has changed to be way more inclusive of the sort of myriad of sexual orientation and identifications that have come our way since when this launched, which was 2015. But they didn't really come to us. We had a relationship with them, and it was 2015, and it was the 10th year anniversary of same-sex marriage in Canada. So we as a country legalized same-sex marriage in 2005. And I was sitting at my computer one day watching our then Prime Minister speak in front of the House of Commons when he was sort of lobbying to legalize same-sex marriage. And I was so proud to be Canadian in that moment. I'm still proud, by the way. It's like only that moment I was proud. And I, had a few ideas in my head about how we could use his speech or celebrate this momentous occasion, because as you probably all are aware, there are so many countries still, and at the time, the US had not yet legalized same-sex marriage. And so, Canadians and Americans were really close, both geographically and sort of, culturally. And it just seemed crazy to me that people that I know south of the border couldn't get married if they wanted to, people in my community. So I worked actually with a guy named Jeff Hiltz as my art director, and he's a creative director right now at FCB Toronto, and John Flannery, who's at FCB Chicago. And we went to Pflag with this idea of celebration rooted in a want for everyone around the world to be able to marry the person that they want to marry. And so it wasn't actually an asked brief, it was an idea that we brought to them, and they were super happy with it. And we wanted to celebrate, but we also wanted to call attention to the fact that there was more work that needed to be done.
Yeah, I worked on Google's Pride campaign this year, so this is very much in my kind of train of thought, and I feel like there's always that balance when you're trying to be brave, and maybe not as much with this client because that's what they're there to do, but with Google, it's like, we don't want to be too political, but we still want to show support. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of your choice. This could have just been a celebration of 10 years, but you did take it down that political path. You did kind of make a stand, and that was like a purposeful choice. And I'd love to hear about like why you made that choice, why that was so important.
Yeah, I mean, you know how sometimes you just get kind of lucky in terms of timing, and it just so happened that the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, was going to hear opening arguments for the legalization of same-sex marriage in the country right around the time that we were going to launch this campaign, which was called Love Made Legal. And it just, the stars aligned, and we put it out into the world, and the world really, really embraced it and accepted it. We asked countries to share their stories of same-sex marriage. I think overall 77 countries got involved, and I don't think at the time we measured the data, but we launched 2 weeks before the U.S. Supreme Court. In my dream world, we affected change. I don't know if we actually did, but I think just as like a focus group of one, I recently moved to the U.S. I moved from Toronto to Los Angeles to work at RPA. And I can't tell you how important it is that the U.S. legalized same-sex marriage, because if this country hadn't, if you guys hadn't, my partner and I wouldn't have been able to move here, because on my visa, I can only travel with a spouse or a dependent, a child or a partner. And if the U.S. hadn't legalized same-sex marriage in 2016, we wouldn't have been able to come, and I would have been really sad because I really love my job. So I just think it is so, I know it seems crazy that we're talking about this, but I think that there are women, lesbian women being canned, and I'm saying like actually tin cans being thrown at them for being caught making out in other parts of the world. And so I think that it is still really important to fight this battle, even if you just do something every day. If on the phone I'm talking to insurance companies, I'm talking to people, and they're like, what does your husband do? I'm like, I don't have a husband, I have a wife. Like small things like that. I don't know if that was your question. I'm kind of off.
I mean, that's
sorry.
That's the answer.
Like flip chairs.
Recruiters too. Right. And I haven't had a chance to sit in on any of the other tracks, but I do wonder a lot about even the current climate that we have with immigration, just in general. And obviously, we have global talent here, and how that's going to impact the diversity that we can bring in. Like, this directly impacts us. So if anything else, like, this is a reason to get involved. Go vote, guys. We can make change in the world. We can make change in our industry, and it starts with us. I would love to hear a bit more from you, your thoughts on what creative teams in general can do to with consideration and representation of LGBTQ+ in their work, and in just how we approach creativity. What can we do to support your community?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think visibility is really important. If you're writing a script and it's open on a man and a woman at a kitchen counter, try to open on 2 men or 2 women, or 2 non-gender conforming people. Just try. It probably is going to be like, no, put a man and a woman back in there. But just try, right? Because the more you try, and the more you try, and the more you try, the easier it's going to get. And I think tell the truth. Be authentic, you know what I mean? This spot, it's so funny when you look back at your spot, you're like, oh, I would have done that differently or that differently. And I was noticing that, self-reflectively, there's a lot of the same colored people partnered in the spot. But I will say that all of the couples in that spot were actual real couples, except for one couple, who that one couple actually ended up dating. I don't know if they're still dating anymore. But, so I think authenticity is really, really important. If you can tell the truth about yourself and about the world around you, you might misstep, you might do something wrong, but at least you told your truth and you were your own authentic self. So I would just say, to help the LGBT community, let's show people that you know. You have friends, you have gay friends, right? Like, you say it. You're probably gay yourself, maybe. I don't know. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one in the room. I'm not the only one.
Everyone's a little bit gay.
It's like 1 out of 10 or something. So yeah, show the community, show your friends, show your family, be authentic, and tell the truth. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can we play video 4, please?
Every year, 35 million Bengali women sing and dance to celebrate the power of Goddess Durga through a national festival called Sindoor Khela. But on one condition: no single women, no widows, no LGBTQ. Because this celebration of womanhood only welcomes married women. This year, the Times of India wanted to change this 400-year-old tradition of rejection into a celebration of acceptance. We transformed Sindoor, a sacred symbol of marital pride, into 2 dots, a new symbol of sisterhood. This became a rallying cry for the uninvited and unaccepted. A national call to action was released through a slam poetry film where the most influential Bengali women demanded acceptance. But in a country of thousands of gods and even more godmen, changing a tradition is never welcome.
This is female chauvinism. Widows in our country who have been treated akin to untouchables.
But nothing could stop this red wave.
A group of Indian widows have returned home to their home city of Kolkata.
Thousands of women came together to share the 2 dots in a historic celebration, and millions poured their heart out in support. Both men and women endorsed the 2 dots as a call for inclusivity. In the process of finding cultural relevance, the Times of India became the news that other newspapers covered. Bengalis did not just embrace the movement, they made the Times of India the most read English newspaper in their 90 million strong community. But more importantly, 50 temple societies opened their doors to women, dropping all labels and conditions.
Excellent work, Gayatri.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Can you give us a little bit more of a cultural background on Sindoor Khela, or even how to pronounce it?
Sindoor Khela.
Okay.
Yeah. So Hinduism is one of the oldest religions in the world, and we have a lot of rituals and traditions that have been kept alive over hundreds and thousands of years. Sindoor Khela happens to be one such festival. It's just that 200 years ago, when they probably created the festival, and it was made for women to celebrate the idea of womanhood. But 200 years ago, the idea of womanhood was really, really narrow. It just meant a married woman. That's it. A married woman equals womanhood. And that meant that the festival went on to sort of discriminate and forbid all the other people who identify as women. And just because it's a Hindu tradition, and a lot of times we're just operating on tradition, it's just gone on for years and years and years, and it's been passed on from generation to generation. So last year, this time actually, we worked with one temple society in Calcutta, which is the city where Bengali people stay, and this is a Bengali Hindu festival. And we worked with one temple society to organize the first ever inclusive Sindoor Khela, where all kinds of women were welcome: transgender women, sex workers, unmarried women, single women, divorced, widows, any kind of women, and married women, of course, and created the first kind of sisterhood of all these women who had never sang and danced and sort of celebrated the festival together.
Yeah, that's great. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced in making this campaign successful?
So anytime you want to have a conversation about religion, it's imperative to be careful. You have to tread with a lot of care, especially in a country like India, where things can get quite heated up and people can get offended quite quickly. So what we did essentially was, in terms of the launch of the campaign, we tried to dial down the brand's voice. And we partnered with minority community leaders, like the transgender woman that you saw in the film. We worked with them and sort of made them the spokespeople for the campaign, so that we come across as more authentic and more sort of sincere in our approach. And our goal has always been to just open up the festival to be more welcoming and to be more inclusive. Our objective was never to attack the sanctity of the festival or change it in any way. So for us to do that, we knew that we had to work with people who were going to be impacted by the very effort that we were making. So that was the first thing, that how do we approach this with the care and the respect that it deserves. The second thing was that we are such a diverse country, right? Where all kinds of people, all kinds of religions. It's very important to get the story right and to get the authenticity of the story. And what helped there was our CCO, Swati Bhattacharya. Sorry. She's actually a Bengali woman, and she's a single mother. And she's gone through the whole experience of Sidur Khela as a married woman who was sort of invited every year to play, and then as a divorced woman who was suddenly not asked to play. So to get the story from her as an insider helped us in making sure that every line of the ad, every piece of film that we were shooting, every art piece that we were releasing came from a place of truth and actual experience.
That's important, yeah.
Also, one more challenge we had was, while we were hearing a lot of stories about the experiences of these women, we were getting quite angry about how it was so exclusive and so forbidden, and it was rejecting women left, right, and center. But the festival itself is quite a joyous celebration. So it was quite a tightrope walk for us on the team, on the creative team, to not pass on that anger and that sort of thing into the campaign itself, because it is about celebration.
Right.
Yeah.
The past few years, we've seen an uptick in inclusive work from India. What do you think is driving this, and is there an opportunity here for women leaders in this cultural moment? Is there one thing you can really focus on?
So I'm really happy about a lot of the work that we're seeing, and the fact that I'm getting to discuss it on a panel like this. It's getting a lot of global recognition. But incidentally, I was actually reading a report recently that Unilever had done, actually, and they looked at advertising in India for a period of 6 months, and it basically said that only 2% of the advertising in India showed women in some sort of aspirational or leadership roles. 3% showed women over the age of 40, and 0% representation of any sexual diversity. So I feel like while we're having all of these discussions, there's a long way to go. We're a huge country with over 1 billion people, and a lot of advertising, regional advertising, national advertising. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. But also therein lies the opportunity for people like me and my peers to sort of bring our own perspective and experiences into the industry and sort of improve that number.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So hopefully you guys got some news you can use from this. I just wanted to leave you with one more thought. This panel and all the panels that we've had so far wouldn't have been here without me and David deciding us two nobodies had an idea that we put forward, and we made it happen with no budget. So same thing with Invisible Creatives and all this work. It's so important if you see a need out there and you know that's something that you want yourself, that you go out and you make it happen. We're creative people. We have the resources to do that. You know somebody who can build the site. You can write. You probably know somebody who could write the copy for you. I just think that remember that you are a change maker yourself. That you have everything that you need to have, even if you're just starting your career. No matter where you are in that kind of stage of your career, you can make a difference just by being yourself and by showing up to by showing up and having that opinion, by showing up and sharing your idea. I think that's just really important. You don't need a big budget to do that. So I hope that you guys all think about that and think about what you can bring to the table, and that you do it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.